Hello, and thank you for watching my presentation. This will be about some cops' attitudes to the legalization in the usage of marijuana. So, for this presentation, as the recreational and the medicinal laws keep getting passed for marijuana, I believe that it is important to get a look at what some officers might think about these laws and whether they agree with them or not. They are ultimately the ones that will be upholding said laws. So I believe that it's important that society will understand finally what some officers think about this. And I'm not sure if this is the first research about these kinds of things where researchers look into what police officers think and their attitudes on certain laws. But if it is the first one, then I think that there could be some really good research going on for these kinds of things. Now we go on to some background information on my research. While I was researching this, it was shown that some cops actually think that marijuana is physically dangerous to somebody as well as psychologically. Now, in a different source that I was looking at, it was shown that 31% of cops in this research thought that having a small amount of marijuana in your possession was not necessarily a bad thing, while 85% of cops also thought that the possession laws of small amounts of marijuana were not being enforced entirely correctly. Now, in another study that was found, the officers weren't necessarily opposed to the recreational or the medicinal laws, but they expressed some concerns. And one of these concerns to it was that the youth now has more access and easily more access to marijuana, but they also don't have education programs or systems in place to teach kids about these kinds of drugs, whether or not they can help your body or they're used for personal gain, whether you just want to get high or not. Now, my research question to this is that what are some of the attitudes that officers feel when it comes to the legalization or usage of marijuana? And then, so what I'm going to do for this research, I would like to research it with surveys. And with this method, I can accurately be able to tell what somebody's feelings of the laws and usage of marijuana are. And I can probably put some questions in there to have them better explain their thought process for me if it's not clear enough. Now, and then for my sampling method, I would want my surveys to be randomized. So with this kind of sampling, I can make sure that I'm not handpicking certain individuals who I know their thoughts on this issue. I want to make sure that I'm picking people who I don't know, and I don't want to pick people by myself. So I would just bring these surveys to different departments, drop them off, and have the police officers fill them out for me. And then I'll come back after a period of time and come pick the surveys back up. And then I would want, since this is a survey, I would want to at least have about maybe 500, maybe less, of these things going through so that I can accurately get a good population size of their feelings. Now we go into some ethical considerations of my research. So some ethical things would be that medical marijuana does help some people. So why would I want to bring up some issues about this? And to combat this, I would be asking the officers on both separate THC, which is the part of marijuana which will get somebody high, and the CBD part, which has been known to actually help some people in some cases. Now, another consideration would be that am I acting morally correct in this research? And to combat this, I wouldn't be telling anybody my own beliefs on marijuana, of the legalization, recreational or medicinal, at all. I don't want anybody to take my beliefs to heart and make it change their mind right away. I just want what they think right there in that moment. I would also want to keep the surveys anonymous so that it protects the officers. So when this research comes out, people aren't, you know, trying to find these officers because they hold different beliefs of them. And then when I give out the survey, I want to have my informed consent out paper on top of it stapled to the top. And with this, I will be telling them what kind of questions are on there. And they'll also have to mark a box that says, I agree or I do not agree with this. And then they'll also have to sign their names at the bottom so that I know that they are agreeing to do this survey. And I will also be keeping it anonymous again, so it protects them and nobody will know who said what. Now, we go into some data quality issues here. So to come up with some issues, I will be sampling at random. So I won't be knowing who said what, or I'll know who said what, but nobody else will know who said what. And then another issue for the reliability and the validity of the project, I will make it so I pick only a handful, maybe a dozen to 2 dozen officers per different department, so that I'm not getting an entire department worth where they all talk amongst each other and they all think the same thing. Because I would want, separation, and I want their own thoughts and beliefs and not a group effort. And then some other issues is that they could get bored of the survey and just quit halfway through, which is fine. That will be on the informed consent that they can leave the survey at any time without any consequence. But if they do finish the survey and if there's just random junk on their desks or whatever they are, the survey could go into the trash or just go missing and I'll never be able to find it. And to combat this, I would like to have them keep it in like a folder, like a group folder that I give out. And when they're done, just put it in that folder for me. And then some other issues is I won't be using any jargon. I'll keep the questions simple and easily answerable for them. And then my plan for analysis on this will be that it's going to be qualitative data. So after all my questions are answered, I can put it all into a spreadsheet and I can make a code book with numbers or letters depending on the different answers. And then after I put it into the spreadsheet, then I'm going to make it into a histogram so that people can easily see what some officers think on these questions. So now we're on to project implications. These are where I talk about some of the so what questions that some people might ask me about it. And one of them is that it's already made legal or it's an already made law. So why are you doing this? And so what? If the law's already been passed, why does this have to happen? And to them, I would just politely tell them that I'm not here to change any laws. I'm just here to get thoughts and attitudes on what the current situation is. And another so what of the research would be that maybe the officer says he doesn't care one way or another about the marijuana. So why does he have to do this? And to him or them, I would say they don't have to do it if they don't want to. That's on the informed consent, that they can quit whenever they want without any consequences, no matter what, so that they're not feeling pressured to do this whatsoever. And so this also saves them by, if they're busy, they can just quit the survey. If they're getting busy with work, busy with life, they don't always have to just do the survey. I'm making sure that they have their own choice. And now we move on to the solicitation of advice and some things that my peers would want to ask me about my research. So some might ask me about why are you asking police officers these questions? And to this question, I would say that since they are the ones upholding the laws, whether they do it correctly or not, they're the ones that are quote unquote in charge of the laws. And so I think it's important to understand how they feel about the usage of marijuana. And then another question is that somebody might ask me how I might access the research, and I would tell them that it is public research and that they would be able to access it wherever I put it. And I would also show them how to access it when I put it up there. And then, so another question is that what is your viewpoint on this subject? Into this, I would just tell them that doing this research was not meant for me. It was meant for society to see how police officers think about certain things. And uh, the research that I'm doing was never meant for me to be a part of. If I was a part of this research, I think it would be a detriment to it because one, I'm not a police officer, and two, it's just my ways might actually change somebody's mind, and I don't want that. I want raw data of what somebody thinks at that moment in time about these laws or just the usage in general. I don't want anybody to think that I am messing with the data whatsoever. I want it to be as reliable and as valid as humanly possible, and I want it to run smooth, and I want to show everybody the data. So I will tell them how to access it, show them how to access it, and I would make sure that people know that officers are the ones who are going to be upholding the laws. So that would be why I'm doing this research. And thank you for watching.